If you're in your 50s and 60s and you've been thinking about the next chapter of your life, or retirement as you might want to call it, you've probably been doing a bit of research. You've been reading, you've been watching YouTube videos, but you've probably noticed an annoying truth about the majority of advice out there. Typically, it comes in extremes. Go all in, quit your job and fully retire. Move to Portugal, sell everything and start again in Malaysia. There's a particularly good YouTube channel where a guy has done that. Hustle harder. Stop doing everything completely today. Now, I know that we live in an environment in 2026 where everything does seem to be in extremes, but real life, especially something as important as working out what we want to do in the next chapter of our life, is rarely solved by swinging from one extreme to another. And that's why one of the most important ideas you can borrow from ancient philosophy to help you navigate your what happens next is the Golden Mean. Now, this isn't any sort of bland everything in moderation cliche, but you learn it as a skill. You learn to find the right middle for you in this upcoming chapter of your life. We're going to be talking a lot about how to do that. Because when you apply the what happens next blueprint, the what happens next approach with curiosity, values, well-being, low-cost experimentation, you get a blueprint for a next chapter that's not just different, but absolutely brilliant, whatever that means for you. So today we're going to be talking about the Golden Mean, how it looks for you, and I'm going to combine that with the elements that we're talking about quite a lot in the upcoming What Happens Next book. And I believe that these tools are going to enable you to live an absolutely cracking next chapter of your life. Welcome to What Happens Next. For over 2 millennia, the ancient Greek philosopher, thinker and polymath, Aristotle, is still regularly quoted. I reckon part of the reason he is because the questions he asked about life still apply today. Questions like, what does it actually mean to live well? Not to look successful, not to win at all costs, not to optimise every aspect of our lives, but to live a life that feels worth living. You see, Aristotle didn't believe in life hacking, whatever that meant in ancient Greece. He was super clear about one thing, which we still fully understand today. Human life is complex, contextual, emotional, and deeply personal. Aristotle understood that there's no single blueprint for a good life because it all depends on who you are, what you value, your collective wisdom you've accumulated over the years, knowledge, experience, and much, much more. However, the key Aristotelian insight from this video is that many virtues are found in between one of two things, one of excess and one of deficiency. Let's take courage as an example. That sits between being completely rash and taking risks that are not sensible and total carelessness. This is where people misunderstood the Golden Mean. It's not about average or picking a halfway point. It's not about playing small or never taking risks. It's closer to finding the right balance for you. It's finding the right middle ground in life between the extremes. And that's why it's so relevant in the next chapter of our lives. Because your next chapter is full of choices where the right answer isn't one extreme or the other. The right answer is personal and depends on who you are. It depends on your context. In What Happens Next, we talk about why this stage of life can feel super messy. You're renegotiating identity, structure, purpose, routine, friendships, and even your relationship with time. And when you go through that kind of transition, the brain tends to reach out for extremes, particularly in an environment where we seem to be currently, where we go to extremes a lot. Because extremes, there is a good thing about extremes, they feel decisive. Extreme decisions are often simple and clear-cut. You see it everywhere. When it comes to work, we burn ourselves out, so we decide to stop entirely. When it comes to health, we lurch from no activity to deciding we should be in the gym 6 days a week. When it comes to purpose, we feel we need a big purpose or we don't have any purpose at all. And when it comes to retirement, we see ourselves either fully retired or we're continuing to work full-time with no nuance in between. I see it with people's relationships with money all the time. Instead of getting a decent level of balance between spending and saving, many of us are particularly good at one or the other, where in reality, finding the right balance is the right way to go. I've recently been thinking a lot about the Golden Mean and finding balance a lot recently because it's all in the What Happens Next book. The book, by the way, is out soon. We're just on the cusp of launching the date for the book launch. And I'd love for you to be, number one, one of the first people to grab a copy of the book, but also number two, to have the chance to attend the book launch. To do that, click a link in the comments, or if you're watching this on a bigger screen and you've got your phones at hand, feel free to take a photo of the QR code, which will take you to the waiting list designed to help you be one of the first people to get hold of the book. Because in the book, I talk about the fact that there's no such thing as this idealised perfect balance. After all, not everything is perfectly aligned all the time. However, it is worth asking ourselves some questions to see whether we're too far out of balance. Questions like, what parts of my life are currently out of kilter and do need rebalancing? And what areas could I spend some time to improve on? Also, who and what might help me to support me to do this? I want to continue this video by telling you a story. It's a story about a guy who knew he had enough money. In fact, he was a client of mine and he'd been talking about the fact that he'd had enough for many years, and I'd been talking to him about the fact that he had enough for many years. And I had him in my office one day and I said to him, Steve, I know that you've got enough to stop work. I also know that you're telling me that you're pretty consistently not enjoying what you do. So I'm really curious, mate. Why are you carrying on? And he looked me in the eye and said, Chris, I know I've got enough money, but who am I without doing this? Because one of the problems when we think about work is when somebody realises the thing that holding them back isn't financial, it isn't practical, it's actually existential. When you start asking your question, I don't enjoy my work, but what am I without it? It's interesting. A lot of my financial planning clients come to me to work out what that balance means for them. And I do talk about the money side, but I also think there's a golden mean between working enough to give us satisfaction and thinking about how we get the balance right so we can live other elements of our lives. And I don't believe it's particularly healthy to be working all the time or not working at all. But for many, the choice about work does feel binary. Work full-time or stop work completely. But in What Happens Next, and in the model we use and have written about in the book, we recommend something much more psychologically realistic, a gradual flight path. A time in your life where you reduce the days and hours you work, testing what works, and having tiny experiments along the way to allow you to work out what that stage of your life could potentially include. That's the mean. That's the golden mean for most people. It isn't just stop. It doesn't mean stopping work overnight, but it does mean shifting into the next chapter of our lives gradually, not instantly, and with intention. I talk a lot in the What Happens Next book as well about two unhelpful money extremes. The insatiable pursuit of more, even when it harms well-being, and an avoidant relationship with the money. A place where we think that money doesn't matter. And let's be clear, Money is a tool to live the life you want. And there needs to be a balance between not letting money be your master, but actually money helping you live the life you want. I want to talk about the golden mean when we're thinking about change, because change is a really important element of moving into the next chapter of our lives. But often we get stuck between the extreme of paralysis and the extreme of reckless reinvention. When the next chapter feels too huge, people either overthink or blow everything up and move to another country. Now, two of those extremes actually don't serve many people. That's why it's really important to think about the next chapter of your life and lean in on the concepts of rapid, low-cost experimentation. Small, reversible steps that reduce risk, increase clarity, and lower intimidation into that next chapter. That's what the golden mean means. It means finding the balance between not taking action, but also not taking action that's going to blow up your life. Not frozen, but not frantic. Just slowly and with a scientist mindset, with experimentation in mind, working out the life you want to live in the next chapter. However, all of that raises a big question. How do you find the right golden mean for you in your life? And here's the part most people don't talk about when they talk about the golden mean. Aristotle's golden mean isn't just a slogan or a concept. It's an art form. It's a practice. You've got to actively do it. So let's make it practical when we're thinking about what happens next. Pick one domain where you're beginning to feel a bit of tension, be that work, health, friendships, purpose, money, or being part of your community and giving back. Draw a simple line and label the ends. What if I was doing too much of this? What if I was doing this in excess? And what if I was doing too little? For example, you might pick work. The excess element might be work dominates identity, my time and my life, and every other area of my life shrinks in comparison. Deficiency might mean no work, no structure, no meaning, and days blurring into one. This step matters because it really makes clear that those two extremes are probably not what we're looking for. Then work out for you what the best golden mean looks like. And then try it. Don't try it as a permanent lifestyle. Just simply experiment with that minor change over the next 2 to 4 weeks. That's exactly the mindset you want. Finding the golden mean is something you try, track, and then refine. And I'd suggest you track what you learn, because the mean is discovered by action, not declared by intention. There's a simple journaling loop that I really love that turns action into insight. Firstly, look at, in trying to find the golden mean for you, that bit in the middle between extreme and deficiency you want to live your life by, here's the questions you want to ask. What experiments did I try? What did I learn about myself? What values came most alive? But where didn't it work? Where was it most uncomfortable? That's how you avoid just doing stuff. You build a reflection loop that allows you to learn every time you try one of those tiny experiments. So, the golden mean, finding what Aristotle used to talk about as the ideal middle for you, is about feedback, tiny experiments, rapid low-cost experimentation, documenting what the extremes are in your life between one and the other, and finding something in the middle that works for you. Pick one area, name the extremes, run one small experiment toward the middle, and track consistently what you learn. I hope that explanation of the golden mean is really useful. For more Aristotelian insights, check out this video on 5 ways to build stronger friendships in this period of our lives. And in this video, watch our biggest interviews of 2025. Amazing people sharing amazing insights about what happens next. That's it for today. Have a lovely day, and we'll see you on the channel soon.